Good morning. So we're at the 4-minute and 45-second mark. That means you got 15 seconds to get back in your seats before we begin again. That was a joke. And coming to the mic now is Dr. Clinton Coleman. Dr. Coleman's going to speak to us a bit about hypertension. Dr. Coleman, good morning. Thank you.
Make sure everyone gets a prostate, a cerebral prostate. I don't know how I feel about squeezing my prostate for stress relief, but I thought that was interesting. Thanks for coming. My name is Clinton Coleman. I'm a nephrologist. What that means is I specialize in kidney disease and high blood pressure. So I've been at Holy Name for about 8 years now. And I guess the goal here is to try to make this mysterious disease as simple as possible, so to help us to be able to take care of ourselves and actually when we see the doctor to know what's going on. So I'm going to run through high blood pressure from its basics and go over management and treatment. If you have any questions, please feel free to interrupt me. So high blood pressure is very common. So, I have about 3 friends. So one of those friends typically has high blood pressure. So 1 in 3 Americans have high blood pressure. That's how common it is. And unfortunately, it affects and it contributes to about 1,000 deaths per day. So it's one of the most common and serious problems that leads to other problems that we face. And then, as you get older, you become more people have hypertension, and there's also a race disparity. So, like I mentioned, Americans, 1 in 3 have high blood pressure, but you see for African Americans, 2 in 3 have high blood pressure. And that's for many factors, like Dr. Adair addressed. But just know, based on your race, you're more likely to have high blood pressure. So it all starts with the heart. So as you know, the heart is a pump. So your body, your tissues, your organs, they need blood to function. So the heart is what circulates that blood. In 2 phases. One is a filling phase where the heart fills with blood, and that's called diastole, or where the heart relaxes. In order to circulate that blood, it contracts or pumps, and that's called systole. So when you hear blood pressure, there's 2 numbers, but that's what that's measuring. It's measuring the filling pressure in the heart and the pumping pressure in the heart. At its basic level, blood pressure is all about plumbing. So when I take a shower, I go upstairs. The water that's coming out of the shower comes from somewhere. So it usually comes in my basement. So there's a pump that brings the water from one place to the other. That pump transports water through pipes. And so if you think of your body just like that, it'll make it easier. Like I said, we need, plumbing gets water from point A to point B. The blood actually in your body is the water in the plumbing system. The pipes that you have in your house are similar to the blood vessels that you have. So the blood vessels carry blood from point A to point B. Any plumbers here? But you got what I'm saying. It's basic. It's simple. So without the pump, without your heart, water doesn't go anywhere. Your blood doesn't go anywhere. Like I mentioned, the blood, your heart fills with blood, contracts to get blood to where it needs to be. If there's not enough pressure in my shower, it's not a bad shower. If there's too much pressure in the shower, the faucet or the shower head can come off, and that applies to your body as well. So if the pressure is too low, you don't feel well. If the blood pressure is too high, that can lead to dangerous things like stroke, heart attack, kidney failure, blindness. And there's certain things that affect your blood pressure, just like in your plumbing system. The amount of water in your system, the amount of blood in your body, the size of your blood vessels, the size of the pipes, if there's schmutz or whatever in the pipe, that affects the pressure, and the strength of the pump in my basement, and the strength of the heart. So it's pretty equivalent, how your body works and how a plumbing system works. So what happens if the pressure is too high? So we heard the expression pressure bust pipes. So my job is to have you understand what happens when you have high blood pressure, mostly over a long period of time. So, in your house, just like if you have some over time, that can damage the pipes and whatever is downhill from the water system. Same thing happens in your body. If there's too much pressure in your body, then that can affect your vital organs. So what is normal? So when we think of high blood pressure, traditionally we think of a blood pressure of 140 over 90. So 140, that top number is the pumping pressure of the heart, and the bottom number 90 is the filling pressure of the heart. So normal is anything less than 120 over 80. And normally when you go to the doctor's office, we'll be checking blood pressures here, but they get a reading and tell you what your blood pressure is like. And that's just a one picture in time, but high blood pressure is a chronic problem, so it's just more than one reading. And we call high blood pressure the silent killer for many reasons, because one is that you can walk around with high blood pressure and not know it. So you don't have to have symptoms. So you can walk around with a blood pressure of 160 over 90 for 5-10 years and not feel a thing. The problem is it's dangerous because over time that makes the heart work more, and that can cause your pipes, your blood vessels to harden. We call that atherosclerosis. And over time that can lead to other medical problems like heart attacks, stroke, heart failure, blindness, and kidney failure. So all these things are serious, but I'm sure some people are going to see this and focus on the one thing. And when I get to it, you'll know what it is. But to me, stroke is scary. Being blind is scary. Kidneys failing, needing dialysis or a transplant is scary. Having a heart attack is scary. But those sexual side effects, that should scare everybody. So if you leave here, just know that's what you're at risk for if you have high blood pressure. So what are the main causes of high blood pressure? So the most simple one is primary or essential hypertension. So that's basically high blood pressure where we don't have a source. So that's your normal garden variety high blood pressure that's passed down from generation to generation. So mom, dad had high blood pressure, and unfortunately you're at risk for having high blood pressure. Sometimes kidney diseases can cause high blood pressure, or even hormonal problems. There's certain glands in your body that secrete hormones that can raise the blood pressure, like the adrenal gland and the thyroid gland. Weight is really important when it comes to high blood pressure. So the heavier you are, whether you're overweight or obese. So anytime I put anything in bold means, I'm trying to emphasize, I'm yelling at you. So if you're obese, that can cause high blood pressure in and of itself. Also, sleep apnea, which we've all heard of, can also lead to high blood pressure. And also there's this entity called white coat high blood pressure or white coat hypertension. And that's for a clinic or an emergency room and your blood pressure is high. So that's not necessarily true high blood pressure, but it's more a situational high blood pressure. But over time, that can also lead to high blood pressure as well. So how do we treat, we know how to diagnose it, right? So how do we treat high blood pressure? So I want to emphasize that you can almost always prevent high blood pressure, and if you do have it, you can always treat it. The most important things which we'll talk about is maintaining a healthy weight, being physically active, following a healthy eating plan, and eating foods with less sodium. Sodium is important because sodium serves in your body as a way for your body to hold on to fluid. So remember, we talked about plumbing. The more fluid you have in the system, the higher the pressure. Same thing with your body. The more fluid you have in your body, the higher the pressure can be. And salt helps your body to maintain fluid, for better or for worse. Drinking alcohol in moderation is important, and if all else fails, in the last resort, would be using the prescribed medications. So how is weight important? So the heavier you are, the higher your blood pressure can be. So like I mentioned, being overweight or obese increases your risk for developing high blood pressure. And we all know that if you lose weight, that can have the biggest effect on improving your blood pressure if you already have it. So the goal is to find your ideal weight. So your ideal weight is based on your height. So we all have right now we're all at the same height. We'll be the same height till we die, but your weight changes. So there's a measurement called the body mass index, and that's just how your height is proportional to your weight. So a normal body mass index, or BMI, is less than 25. So if you're overweight, it's between 25 and 29, and if you're obese, that's greater than 30. And besides high blood pressure, being overweight and obese are risk factors for other diseases. So how do you find your ideal weight? So for me, for example, so I'm probably 180 soaking wet, and I'm 6'1", so I'm in the green. So this doesn't show it, but it'll correlate to a BMI, that's a number. If I was 4'11" and weighed 220 pounds, my weight is not necessarily proportional to my height. But keep in mind, some people have different body types or habits, so if you see a football player who's 300 pounds and 6'6", he's probably not necessarily overweight or obese, but that's just his body type. But in general, your height should be proportional to your weight. You should all get an idea of what your weight should be, and it's a range. So, for example, my range is probably somewhere, I'm 6'1", somewhere between 150, the smallest, and probably 185. Also, being physically active is really important. So physically active means moderate activity for a minimum 20-30 minutes for about 3 to 4 days a week. So that doesn't mean getting up from the couch going to the bathroom. That means exercising, whether that includes brisk walking, bicycling, sports. I don't see many dancers here, or maybe gardening. Something you do to exercise, burn calories. So that's important. That helps the heart pump more efficiently. The most important is eating healthy. So that in of itself can reduce your risk for developing high blood pressure and lowering blood pressure that's already high. So I don't know if you heard about this. There's a particular diet that's important. It's called the DASH diet. So whoever came up with this was pretty smart because salt shaker. But what it means is dietary approaches to stopping high blood pressure. So that includes eating foods that are low in saturated fat and cholesterol, eating more foods that have fruits and vegetables, and eating foods that are low in salt and sodium. And I'm not sure that you're aware of this, but as Americans, we eat too much salt. So we eat double of the recommended allowance. So normal sodium intake is probably about 2,000 milligrams per day. Yes, sir.
Yeah, you say say that we eat too much salt. How do the people like in China and Japan, their food is like loaded with salt? Like,
Right.
talk to me.
I can't speak for Chinese people, but you know, every culture has their differences. So
Difference between their salt and ours?
probably we eat a lot more processed foods. So you know, and I'm sure they eat probably less salt than us because a lot of the foods that we eat have so much. I'm going to give you examples soon about how much.
I mean, we have Chinese restaurants right here in America.
Yeah, I don't know. Chinese people probably don't eat Chinese food at Chinese restaurants.
What
So.
I'm saying is, you went to a Chinese restaurant, and you find the food loaded with salt.
Right.
And assuming that you know that you're eating a lot of salt,
Right.
just like they do.
Right.
How do they do it?
So I wouldn't focus on the types of food that different cultures eat. I would focus on the processing of the food. So I'm sure native Chinese people who come here don't go to the Chinese food restaurants, right? They probably buy fresh ingredients. Huh?
Different kind of salt.
Well, some foods have, you know, for example, soy sauce is common. You know, it has a lot of salt, but I'm sure there's some kind of moderation that, and I can't speak for what their particular diet is. But as far as our Western diet, which is notorious for having too much processed food, too much salt, I think, you know, and as you can see here, most of the food that we consume is not fresh food that we make, this food that we buy from outside. So if you look here, 65% comes from retail stores, that's supermarkets and fast food restaurants. Fast food restaurants aren't like a big thing in other countries, right? They're excited if they get a McDonald's. Like we have McDonald's in every corner, so I think that's the difference, right? I think it's the processed food. So I'm sure if you look at China, their percentage of food that comes from their home is probably way more than 10%. We tend to eat out more, right? Because part of it's capitalism too, right? So salt tastes good, so you know, McDonald's, Burger King, they know that, so they manufacture the food with salt. So when we go there, the food is really salty, and we get thirsty after that, so we buy, you know, the extra large drink to drink, right? That has a lot of sugar in it. So it's a cycle that they know, they engineer it. So, you know, unfortunately, we fall for the okie doke sometimes. So, anybody know how much sodium a slice of pizza has? Take a guess. Close, so 500. But who eats one slice of pizza? So 2 slices of pizza, that's 1,000. Say your limit is 2,000. You've already had half of your allotment for salt today. What about a Big Mac? That's 1,000 milligrams of salt. More people just don't eat one Big Mac. So just get an idea of how much salt you eat. You know, so. I'm going to go over labels in a minute, but some of the, we talked about this, some of the ways to reduce salt. So too much salt is bad, too much of anything is bad, right? So salt is bad. So what's different about us is we tend to eat more processed food. So the ways to reduce that is to eat more fresh food, so less canned foods, less processed foods. Yes, sir.
They go shopping? Their food is probably different from ours. So their food is it said 65% comes from China. Maybe 20 might come from there.
Yeah, I agree. I think that, you know, I guess the take-home message is just try to prepare your own food as much as possible. Because, you know, you have control over what you put into your body, right? So, McDonald's, they're a multi-billion-dollar industry. They could care less what happens to you. They just want your money. So. But this is, you know, when you cook rice, pasta, try not to add salt. You know, if you have a salt shaker, you know, try to hide it. You know, food is already naturally salted, so you don't need to add extra salt. You know, that's difficult, but over time, you know, your taste will change. So when you go back to, you know, eating, you know, what you would think would be normal tasting food, it tastes a little salty. So it does take some time for your taste buds to change, but I think that'll be a good thing in the long So, not just as it pertains to high blood pressure, but we should always get in the habit of looking at our labels, right? So when we go to the gas station, we know what we put into our car, but we really could care less what we put into our bodies, right? Well, the difference between like frozen peas on the left and canned peas on the right. So if you scroll down to sodium content, and just remember, there's a little trick, not a little trick, but when you look at labels, it's always in serving size, right? So, sometimes, unfortunately, when you buy a juice, it says more than one serving, but you usually drink the whole thing, right? So you're getting, much more than what you actually think you're drinking. So, for example, frozen peas, have 5% of sodium of your daily recommended allowance, as compared to 3 times as much with the canned peas. I just feel weird eating food that's been stored in a metal container for a month anyway, months at a time, years at a time. So I think, eating fresh, the more investment you put in, I think the more you get back from long-term health. And last but not least, so I say that last but not least because, I treat medications as the last resort because, lifestyle changes usually have a more impact on your body than medication. So we can all prescribe medications, but if you don't change your diet or your lifestyle or exercise, then medications aren't really optimized and you're not doing your body justice. So, medications have side effects. There's a cost involved. So the simplest thing and the best thing that you can do for yourself is to, work on your diet and exercise. But as far as medications, the concept of the plumbing system applies as well. So there's certain medications like diuretics that deal with extra fluid in the body, right? So that helps lower the blood pressure. There's medications that deal with the size of the blood vessels. So if you think of a pipe and the pipe is too narrow, that can raise the blood pressure. So there's medications that help dilate or open up your blood vessels, like vasodilators or ACE inhibitors, not to get into too many details, but also the strength of your heart. We use medications to affect that, and that affects your blood pressure. So if your heart's not, pumping too strong or too fast, that can raise your blood pressure. So there's medications that can slow that process. But overall, sometimes you need more than one medication. But I think, when all else fails, the doctor may prescribe medications to try to get your blood pressure under control to prevent these preventable diseases like stroke and heart disease. So just to summarize, and I'll answer any questions that you have afterwards, but I really want to emphasize that high blood pressure is a preventable disease. So you don't have to have it to improve that and prevent it. And God forbid you do have high blood pressure, there's things that you can do to treat as well. So, and the most important things which we talked about is losing weight and being active and also eating healthy, meaning lowering your salt intake. And when all else fails, using prescribed medications. Any questions? Yes, sir.
One thing I noticed is there's different types of technologies that measure blood pressure.
Yes.
On the cuff and then others. Which one do you think is the most accurate?
Usually in the office we'll do the arm cuff, that's called the sphygmometer. But for the purposes of measuring your blood pressure on a day-to-day basis, having an automated one that goes in your arm is probably as accurate as can be. The ones on the wrist aren't really that accurate. Just think, if a cup is too small, then the pressure is going to be high. If the cup is too big, the pressure is going to be low. So, your doctor will go over the best way and how to check your blood pressure with you. But the ones we do in the office are pretty good.
Just to follow up, I noticed that when I go to different doctors, I get different readings.
Right.
And some of them are doing it the old-fashioned way, which is the manual way.
Right.
The manual way is still a great way to do it.
Yeah, manual is really accurate. blood pressure changes from day to day, hour to hour, and that depends on, there's other things that affect blood pressure besides your salt intake. So stress can affect it. If you wait in the doctor's office 3 hours and he comes in and checks your blood pressure, it may be a little high. When you go to the office, sometimes you're fasting, you haven't eaten anything, your blood pressure may be a little bit different. So it fluctuates, but it should be in a consistent range depending on how you measure it. I'll get it back.
Yeah, I was, my question is really more about your section about sodium intake and eating out and cooking.
Yes.
For yourself. I was just curious, for those who do eat out a lot, is there any particular recommendations of, I don't want to say fast food, but just options when you're going to eat out that you would coach, that you would steer your patients to?
Yeah, so, salt is used as preservative, so the more processed foods you eat, the more salt it probably contains. So when you go out, try to eat more fresh food, but you don't have much control over what's in my back. A lot of menus have different options as far as the sodium content, so you can ask the server to not add salt. But I think starting off with not adding salt to your food and avoiding fast food restaurants is probably the most easiest thing that you can control. Yes, sir.
Yeah, does medication help you?
Yes, so stress can raise blood pressure, so. I'm sorry?
Or does it just help at times?
No, meditation has been proven long-term to help reduce your stress and subsequently can reduce your
Well, in
blood
other
pressure.
words, does it help at that time, or does it just help if you do it often enough?
No, it helps in that moment. If you're stressed and anxious, if you meditate, that'll calm you down, that can lower the blood pressure, yes. Yeah.
My question about CoQ10, it's really helpful to reduce hypertension or?
CoQ10 is not necessarily for high blood pressure, that's more for your cholesterol, but there's some natural things that can help with high blood pressure, like garlic, hibiscus can help with it as well. But less salt is the most important.
I have a question. I went to my doctor, started seeing a new doctor a couple of years ago, and he took my blood pressure. Sit down normally, and my blood pressure was a little high, and my doctor said, "Let me do this trick with you." He said, "Hold your arm out like that." I held my arm out like this. He took my blood pressure, and it was normal. Okay, so I went to my job. And every year, you go get checked up, and I have the nurse do the same thing. She took my blood pressure, it was a little high. Then I said, let me just tell you what my doctor did. I did the same thing. She took the blood pressure, and it was normal. Can you tell me why that is, or?
The correct way of checking your blood pressure is actually having your arm above your heart.
Right.
That'll give you the most accurate reading.
That is the most accurate reading when they do it like that.
Well, not like that, but
I
you're
mean,
sitting and your arm should be
yeah, sitting,
a little bit
yeah.
elevated, and that gives you the most accurate reading. So,
Or then just having it.
Right.
Because that's the way most doctors give me my blood pressure.
most doctors don't check blood pressure correctly. So, you should be sitting down in a calm environment. You shouldn't be, as soon as you walk into the room, checking the blood pressure.
They said you should sit down and relax.
You should be relaxed, you should be sitting, your arm should be elevated above either at the level of your heart or above your heart, and that gives you the most accurate reading.
I was just going to say that it could be because he's where it is. That is to say that if somebody takes your blood pressure while you're at your job, as opposed to the.
No, I was in the nurse's office.
Your blood pressure will be higher at the job because you might say, "Oh, I hate this job," or something like that. You're being stressed.
Any other questions?
With regard to exercise and walking, is walking, just say walking in the city, blocks from the train to your job, maybe you walk 5 blocks. Is that different from walking around the track, a little, brisker walking around the track or something? Or is walking?
Well, yeah, being active is being active. There's different levels of it, but we should all try to be as active as we can. The goal is to get your heart rate up, right? So that helps, the heart be efficient. So the more brisk walking you do, the more brisker activity you do, long term can help. But walking, if you have an option of, walking up the stairs or taking the elevator, walking up the stairs, even though you're not like running up the stairs, that still will help. Take the elevator. Yes.
What are your comments about the different types of medication for type 2 diabetes? Like I take metformin for type 2 diabetes, but over a period of time, you talk about maintaining weight levels. My weight has seemed to have been reduced over time, and my understanding was it was the effects of the metformin.
Metformin helps you to lose weight. It's one of the diabetes medications that can help
Right.
you lose weight.
But is there a point where it gets too much? I mean,
No, I mean, with any medication, there's diminished returns, right? So, at some point, the medication will be as effective as it can be, right? So, at some point, it may not control your sugar as it did initially, or you may not lose as much weight as it did before. But, there's so many different types of medications for diabetes. It depends on how well your diabetes is controlled. If you have other medical problems as well, like heart disease or high blood pressure. So that's really an individual decision based on what other kinds of medications, whether they're pills or insulin or injections. Yes?
Is acupuncture helpful in reducing blood pressure?
Yeah, so acupuncture is good for reducing, actually been proven to help improve blood pressure as well. So there's a lot of things that are non-traditional that can help blood pressure. So meditation, acupuncture can also help. Yes.
Could you comment on the effectiveness of certain medications on African American hypertensives?
Also, that's a good point.
Versus,
So yes.
Caucasian?
Yeah, so different medications affect different people, different types of people. So, African Americans, based on our history, and I won't get into the details, but our bodies are salt sensitive, right? So the medications that work best for us deplete our bodies of salt, so like diuretics. So, your doctor should talk to you about the particular medication that's right for you, not just a cookie cutter medication. So every individual patient, there's different medications that'll work best for that particular patient, and whether that's age, race, gender, or other comorbid conditions. Yes, sir.
one thing I like is rice. But they say rice turns into sugar.
Yes.
So, is it, how much rice?
Depends on how much you like it, right?
Second.
Depends on how much you like it. I mean, if you eat rice every meal, that's probably not a good idea. So yeah, rice is a carbohydrate. So there's complex carbohydrates like starches, rice, bread, and there's simple sugars like, apple juice. So too much carbohydrates is not good. So just like salt, there's a daily recommended allowance for carbohydrates, and that includes rice. The difference between Chinese people is they're not eating other sugars, right? So that's their carbohydrate. We eat rice and bread and pasta and sugar and all that stuff, so we tend to overdo it sometimes. Thank you very much.
well, I had a question.
Yes, sir.
How can we get the slide?
Oh, I can send it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Coleman, and next time you don't have to holler at me with all those fat words in there. I'll take a short break and then we're going to come back and talk about, I think it's hypertension. No, not hypertension, but stroke. So we'll take another short break and we'll be back in just 5 minutes. Okay, thank you.